You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Wesleyne. Wesleyne, welcome.
Hi, Fred. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
No, me too, because there's an interesting angle about the way that you deal with sales and train sales. So you're a sales trainer and coach, also a podcast host. I need to be on best behavior, don't I?
No, not at all. Not at all.
The Transformed Sales Podcast. I feel as though I'm being scrutinized now. Oh dear.
I'm looking into the window of your soul, right?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, so much pressure. How could he deal with it? But no, to a bit about yourself. You're a former chemist. So what sort of chemistry were you involved with?
So I really worked with polymers, so plastic, analytical type chemistry, if you will. And I call
Oh,
myself a recovering chemist, not a former chemist, because chemistry is always in my blood and it's in my DNA.
sorry, not former, a recovering. I like that. I like that a lot. And the reason I bring that up is because what really caught my attention about you is that you're very specific about who you want to train sales with. Um, you train in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing. Very deliberately that area. Why is that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I know, and I tell my clients often, is one of these Wesleyne isms. It's called there are riches in the niches, right? And so the more laser focused you are on the ideal client profile, on the demographic that you serve, the better you are to them as a service provider or giving them their product. And so as a recovering chemist, I understand the intricacies in how that world works. We call it technical sales. And it's a very technical sale where you may be an engineer or a scientist or somebody really smart selling to regular people, right? And so it's hard to translate all of this knowledge that you have, all of this fancy stuff in your brain to help your audience, to help your prospective buyers understand it.
No, totally. No, I get it. I've worked in that sector as well, so I know what you're talking about. Do you find there's sometimes challenges as well when you've got expert talking with expert, and they can get into such a level of technicality and detail? It's like, guys, moving along. Do you find that?
All the time. I was actually working with a European team today, and since you're across the pond, over that way, you can kinda understand how that culture works, right? And so they were like, "But I'm talking to these people that have PhDs, and they wanna know this, and they wanna know that, and they wanna know that." And I have to ask them, "But how do all those small little tiny details help them solve their problems?" Right? Like, so we have to bring it way up. We have to get out of the weeds of the small technical bits and all of those small things and really bubble things up so that the audience, the buyer understands like, yeah, this technical detail, this specification is important, but the fact that this solution can solve my problem and help me move along my journey, that's what's most important.
Yeah. And one of the things I found as well is that sometimes and it's a hard one to call this, I think, you're getting almost like I don't know the best word, project creep, where it's an engineer, particularly engineers, they love solving problems, and they'll turn up to solve the problem they're there to do. But then they look across and there's something else that needs solving, and they start on that, and they're solving a whole bunch of stuff that's because they can, and it intrigues their mind, but it's not really what they're to do. Tough one, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I say you can't be your customer's toy. It's your responsibility, your job to get things back on track. When you start seeing that scope creep, you're like, man, those are some amazing projects that we can handle in phase 2 or phase 3. But right now, let's stick to phase 1. Let's stick to this one thing that we need to solve so we can get that initial win. And once you get into their purchasing system, they get the first PO, they say that first, yes, it's easier for all the other ones. But if you try to solve the $1,000,000 problem initially, not the $100,000 problem, what happens is you lengthen your sales cycle, you diminish your value. All the things happen when you allow the customer to take control of the conversation.
Yeah. That's a brilliant answer because I know that if you get that answer wrong or you give them the wrong advice, it'll be pushed back with, "Well, no, that's why they want to work with me because I can solve all the problems." And it's how they build the relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like you
Yeah,
said, it's like I can solve all the problems because I'm so smart and I'm so amazing and I'm so
yeah.
great. But nobody actually really cares about you that much. It is all about what the buyer needs and how you can help them get to the next step. And so as technical salespeople, that's the paradigm shift that I try to drive. It's not about how great your product is, how smart you are, because some of these sales people I'm working with have PhDs themselves. And so they're looking at me like, I spent all this time and you're telling me that it doesn't matter. And I'm like, it matters sometimes, but it doesn't matter in a discovery call. It doesn't matter when you're initially trying to get the buy in from the prospect. You have to step into their world. You have to let them be the star of the story and take you along their journey.
I've got it's quite a specific question. I think you'll know what I mean by it. What's the maximum number of self-centered slides that you've seen at the beginning of a presentation when the engineering company rocks up and they're proving their credibility and it's like, we. What's the most you've ever seen, do you think?
Hmm. I think like it's a whole deck. Like if it's
All of them.
10 slides or 50 slides, it's all about they have all these pictures of products and pictures of the team, pictures of the headquarter, and then they actually don't even talk to the buyer about what their challenges are. And so when we're setting up those initial meetings, no slides, absolutely no slides in your first meeting. But when you get to the point where you need to present slides, it is buyer problem, our solution. Buyer problem, our solution. So we don't have boilerplate decks. There are so many things that we have to unpack so that they understand how to really do this.
No slides first meeting, then it's buy a problem and solution to that. I mean, it is simple, really, isn't
You
it?
would think so, but it really it really is not simple. It's not simple because people still like I'm the worst person to sell to. Like, I think most sales trainers and consultants are the worst. If you come to my discovery call and if I get into your Zoom room and you already are sharing your screen, I'm giving you 5 minutes and then I'm out because I'm taking my time back because it's not about me. It's about you. And I don't care about you. You're not important to me. Like, I need you to understand what is wrong with me, what is happening in my world. And I've taken 30 minutes to say, yes, I will have a conversation with you, but all you're doing is talking about why you're so great.
Yeah. It's I think you have a distinct advantage on the rest of us sales trainers who are not recovering from being chemists or engineers or anything. Because when I said, "Look, just don't, just stop it. You've got to flip stuff around, put them first." No, no, no. They have to know about us. We've got to tell them. They're not going to listen to us unless we say how great we are and we talk about all these things that we've got in our factory, which is the same as everyone else, by the way. Whereas you can say, "No, I've been there. I understand it." And you got that credibility to come across and probably push faster than I
Literally.
can. I have to push far harder.
And the thing is because when I transitioned from being a chemist to moving into the world of sales, the first sales job I had, I was actually selling instruments that I used to use in the lab. So I had this great empathy for every single one of the people I would be talking to because I'm like, I get it. You don't like salespeople. You don't want them coming around, showing up, doing their demos. And I'm like, I'm not here for that. I'm literally here to learn from you. So like one of the things that I tell companies when they're setting up a onboarding plan in this technical sales world is you should have your salespeople go visit all the existing customers in their territory, the ones that the deals they've won and the ones that they've lost. Why? Because learn from the customers. That's the first thing you do. Don't give them a list and say, go prospect people. Make them step into their world. Put a hard hat on, get into the manufacturing plant, go sit at the bench, work with them side by side. Like literally, that is how you are able to build rapport so quickly. And they don't know they have no product knowledge within their first 30 days of their job. So it's great because they're not going to product dump. They don't know enough to
You
say
get it,
stuff,
right?
right? So that's how we start them out.
Yeah, I can imagine people say, "I don't know anything about the product." Yes, that's why you're going out now, so you can't talk about it.
Exactly.
And if we
Exactly.
catch you researching it, we'll take your computer away from you. But
Exactly. I mean, it's literally like flipping the whole I flipped the whole script on the way that we train salespeople, we onboard them because in order for them to step into the buyer's world, they have to understand it. And if I'm working with a company like a large manufacturing company or distribution company, I actually have the salespeople, they go work in the warehouse for like a week or two. They go literally do the things on the operation side of the business because I need you to understand what's happening. Like when a customer says you delivered 3 weeks late, you can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know." You can say, "Man, I completely understand." And this is not an excuse, but we are so short staffed and people are working 12-hour shifts. Like literally take ownership of it, right? And that is the mindset that we have to impart upon our salespeople.
How does that go down with them then? When they rock up there and they're gonna be a salesperson, this big company, and no, you're in the warehouse first day.
Oh, yeah. They're like, "I'm doing what?" And then I pull out my picture. I'm like, "See what I look like? I know I look great, delightful. Do you see me with the hard hat and my steel toe boots on? I did the same thing. If I can do it, you can do it. Next excuse. I'm ready for it." Right? And so that is literally the like, kind of like you said, the like, I've lived this life. I'm not telling you to do anything that I haven't done and proven that it works.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love it. I love it. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of running through all the clients I've worked with, and I actually did start off in engineering sales myself with a degree in commerce and Spanish. I mean, dead useful.
Wow.
Selling pneumatics.
Wow.
How does this work? Fred, think of it as a bicycle pump. Oh, okay, yeah, got it.
Mhm.
No, it was cool. It was very cool. So okay, so focusing in very much on this area, you bring your personal experience to it, getting people to think about how they sort of flip the script, talk about customers first. And, we're joking a little bit, but I know people find that really hard. What are the challenges do you think that people have selling, particularly in those worlds?
So, another thing that people have challenges with is breaking down their products or their services so that their actual customers understand. For instance, I was a chemist, but I sold to engineers. So I had to learn to speak engineer, right? I needed to break things down so that they understood how it physically applied to them. So speaking the customer's language is really, really important. And so that's why when I like throw the new salespeople into the world right away, I do that so they can learn the words, learn the terminology. What are they saying? What things light their face up when you're on a and asking them, so how does this work or how does that work? What kind of things annoy them? So really empathizing and stepping all the way into their world and speaking the customer's language.
Yeah, I love it. Because another of the things that I've seen is that if you don't prep someone to do that, they stay in their comfort zone. And so if you're a chemist, you're going to speak to the other chemists. Why? Because you can speak that language and it's safe and it's good and we're friends and that's good and we're getting on really well. Mm,
Absolutely.
what about procurement? What about production? What
Yep.
about marketing? What about all these other people that do have an influence on it? Frightening them to death, isn't it?
It is, and you talk about influence, and a lot of times people say, "Well, Wesleyne, what kind of selling methodology do you use?" I'm like, "I've been trained in all of the ones, and what I do is I put bits and pieces together from the ones that I like." And so there's one particular training methodology that I incorporate into what we use, and we talk about the buyer situation, a complex buying situation, right? And so we talk about the internal champion, we talk about the decision maker, and we talk about the team of influencers. They're the ones that people always forget, right? And they're like, "What is an influencer?" Your team of influencers, they're the ones who will not speak unless spoken to. They're not going to say, "Oh, your product is great," or "Oh, no, it sucks," or "Oh, I saw this on LinkedIn," or "I did that," or "I did that." But when somebody asks them, "What do you think about X company or X salesperson?" They're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, they suck," or "Oh my goodness, they're great." So we have to realize in these buying situations that we're in, all of those people matter. You can't just focus on the person who's going to sign the check because at the end of the day, they don't really care about all the things you have to say. They need bullet points high level. So you have to really develop the rapport with the right person.
Oh, agreed. And I mean, research shows, and you just know anyway, because it's your world. Salespeople tend not to be speaking to enough people anyway. I mean, normally I'll ask the question, how many speaking to? And whatever the answer, I know what I'm going to say next, which is, well, it's not
Yeah,
enough.
exactly. Like, and
Like you
it's
said, it's not enough.
not so the thing is, it's not enough and it's not the right person, right? Because everybody wants to get to the top. Okay, yeah, uh-huh. Oh, I want to get to the VP of operations because the VP of operation owns the budget. The VP of operations has zero time for you. Who you need to be talking to is the person that has the biggest problem. Maybe that's a maintenance supervisor. Maybe it's an operations manager. They're the ones who they're losing X number of hours per day because the system that they're using doesn't work. Or they're the one who's experiencing high turnover. So they would really like a better employee rewards program. They feel it every single day. And you get them on board and they will get the money. Like, don't even like we don't need to talk about. I mean, the whole I'm going on my rant now because I'm
Good.
thinking
Go
about the
That's what we're here for.
whole way that sellers do things wrong is I want to talk to a person at the top. They don't have time for you. And so what you do is you alienate that person. You keep following up. Well, hey, I was just following up. I was just following up. And they're like, delete, 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 spam. But the person who feels that pain, they understand that if we don't change, we're going to lose this amount of money. If we don't change, this is the amount of time that we're losing. They will get the money. One of my favorite clients that I'm working with, she is a VP of HR. HR has zero budget, no money. She has no budget authority, but she goes and she is my internal champion all over the company. She's like, okay, we need to bring Wesleyne in here. Oh, we need to bring Wesleyne in there. And I have built that relationship with her where she can see like, these are the problems you solve. And these are the people I need to put you in touch with. And she does that. And that's what we need to think about when we're in every single buying situation.
Yeah. Um, no, I love it. Absolutely love it. And users as well. Do
Oh,
you think
yeah.
sometimes people won't, well, they're not important, are they?
Mhm.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're the ones who will say it don't work. Well, it does work, yeah. It doesn't work 'cause I don't want it to work.
Literally, it's like who feels it? Like again, the VP of HR, she feels ineffective sales leadership and high turnover in sales teams. She feels that because her team has to go find those people. Her team is the one who has to put them on pips, right? She feels that burn, right? Whereas the VP of sales is just like, oh, this is just a part of what I had to do. I'm just gonna go get our internal recruiting team to go find more people. They don't feel it. So within your buying situation, you need to identify who is the person who feels it the most. And that's who you focus on. That's who you speak to when you're doing your social media posting. That's who you target. Like get laser focused on that internal champion, define that super, super, super well. And then that's when you'll start seeing things changing. Your win rate will increase, your conversion rates through your sales cycle, sales process will really, really step up.
And this is, I mean, you're giving a masterclass on how to get this right. That's why you're here. But why do you think people get it wrong? Why is it like kind of focus in on the top and they sort of do all these things that are just not going to work?
Fred, you just want me to tell all, you just want me to continue going on my rant.
I do. I love
Well,
a rant.
the
That's what I'm here
reason
for.
why salespeople get it wrong, it is actually not their fault. It is due to ineffective leadership. The problem is there's probably about 93% of the sales training that is focused on salespeople, and only 7% is focused on the sales managers, the sales leaders. And so when we think about that, we put sales managers, VP of sales into these positions and we don't develop them. We don't teach them how to lead. We don't teach them how to not expect everybody to be a cookie cutter carbon copy of themselves. And so they don't know what they're doing. So they're just like, go, I need you to find 10 people every single day. I need you to do demos. And so they tell people what to do, but they don't tell them how to do it. They don't give them the roadmap. They don't give them the tactical bits and pieces of an actual sales process that somebody could take and follow instruction and then come to the leader and say, hey, leader, I'm having a little challenge here. I've tried 5 times to contact this internal champion and I'm not getting through. Do you have any tips for me? Right? But they know what to do. And so you can't just tell people, go do this without giving them a roadmap on how to execute.
And so you train both salespeople and management.
We do. We do. We found that that is the best way to ensure that whatever you're doing sticks. And another thing, I'm very strong in my opinions. And so I say that sales training in a vacuum doesn't work, right? Because if you stick people in a room for 8 hours and beat them over the head with knowledge, they get like 2% of it and it's gone. So when we work with organizations, we have a very hard line in the sand that we have a 6 month ongoing coaching program that we do after we do the training. And so we're coaching the sales managers and the sales teams separately, and then we bring everybody together so that we can ensure the same learning objectives and the things that we're giving the managers, the team is actually able to implement. And then the manager steps back in and they start doing the coaching themselves while we're observing and giving them feedback. So that is the process that we use. And I say it's how adult learners learn. They learn with small little bit, consistently reinforced, having realistic situations, doing role plays, all of those things. That is how you start turning the tables and having more effective sales organizations.
Yeah, I'm really about to start pushing back on the whole day training is kind of how I'll call it. I mean, I've done in the past, because that's kind of what we did, 4, 5-day training courses. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot, a long time. Then at the end of it, so what are your 3 learning points?
Yeah.
5 days, 3 learning points. Okay, smart objectives, off you go. Have
Yeah.
fun. No, you're right. It doesn't work. We need to stretch out the stuff, and we need to have that kind of support in place.
And the
Um,
thing is, it's like as the instructor, like you're tapped out. Like we do a sales training boot camp when we kick off an engagement. And so it's anywhere from 1 to 3 days. And like at the end of 3 days, I'm exhausted. And so I know you're exhausted too. You're like, man, all of this information. But like we have goals. And at the end of each day, it's like, well, what did you learn? Let's make sure we have the feedback loop. Because although we have our master plan, it's like the next day might be a little bit different because y'all didn't get what I was talking about yesterday. So I need to repackage it so I can ensure that you understand it fully.
yeah, yeah. No, don't get me wrong. That kind of boot camp, because you're kicking off a 6-month program, absolutely has its place.
Yeah.
If that 3 days is all you're going to get for the next 5 years, and you're expecting it to have some kind of impact, then no. But yeah, I forgot what I was doing yesterday. That's why we pinned flip charts around the wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone. You just walk around. Oh, we did that, and then we no. Stop it, Fred. Stop it. Um, yeah, that's cool. Um, so okay, so we've got like that's how you would work with both sales management and sales team. And I say, and you're methodology agnostic, or you can pick all the best bits. The ones, well, I like that one, that one, that one. Mix that together. Okay, that's now working better. Um,
Yeah. It's just like a chemistry experiment, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
you add two hydrogens, one oxygen, you get water. But let me add another of oxygen on there. It changes it up just a little bit. So like that's actually how, like I tell people, this is how my chemist brain works. Like I literally take the best bits and pieces from lots of sales methodologies out there and I put them together to make it streamlined for what this specific demographic that I work with needs. Because
yeah,
what we need in these technical sales is very different than what they need in SaaS sales. If I'm selling $100 subscription
yeah,
versus $100,000 piece of equipment, it's completely different. Like that's two different worlds of sales.
totally. Now are you trying to get me to rant about SaaS? You are.
That's gonna
You're
take you on.
you're you're bad. Uh, it is totally different, as they kind of live in their own little world about stuff. Well, it's a big world. It's worth quite a lot of money, but it's an odd setup with different people making appointments to people who are going to do. Anyway, let's leave them to it. Um, well, you nearly got me.
I know. I almost got one on your end, huh?
Oh, it's a long one. We'll run out of cloud space to record it. Um, okay, so you're picking in all these pieces. So here's one then. So how do you keep up to speed? Because presumably you're like going, well, I want to make sure that I am dealing, I'm sharing the latest, the best. What's Wesleyne's training program look like?
That's a good one. So I actually have on my calendar every day from 8:30 to 9. I call it Think Big time. And during this time, I take 30 minutes and this is my own personal and professional development. Whether I'm looking at articles, I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm strategizing for about what's next to come. But I am an avid podcast reader. I literally have like podcast listener. I have like 5 or 6 different books that I'm reading on things like sales and leadership and marketing and like all of these different bits and pieces because my goal is I have to continuously evolve and continuously learn. Like there's a very popular sales methodology out there right now that I won't say the name of it. And I have very big problems with it because this methodology says that everybody has to be a certain way. And in order to be successful in sales, you have to be exactly like this. And so I don't agree with it because I have read the book and I understand what they're saying. And I'm just like, this just is fundamental. You try to put everybody in a box. So, in order to be able to speak intelligently about why I don't believe in the sales methodology, I have to actually know a little something about it. So, like, I am all about reading and learning, and I'm actually enrolled right now in a program. And it's all about leadership, development, building your business, growth strategies. So I do believe because I ask companies to invest in development of their team, that I have to do the same thing for myself and my team.
Yeah, brilliant. And 8:30 to 9 o'clock, that's prime time. Well, okay, I'm reflecting myself on that. I'm a morning person. That is my absolute biggest energy time. Is that similar with you? And that's why you pick that time to do it?
That is when my brain is most active. It is literally like I
Yeah.
have typically dropped the kids off and then I have just this time to be focused. And another thing that I've done and I tell sales leaders they have to do also is you can't be in the business and on the business at the same time. You
Mm.
can't be out there driving the sales, closing deals and think strategically about how to grow your business. So what I've done is I built my organization to where I have support mechanisms and I don't have to be on at 8 o'clock because they're on at 8 o'clock doing what they need to do. And so when I pop on at 9 o'clock to really start working in the business, that helps the company grow. And as a leader, we have to remember that it is our job to think strategically, not just the tactical things about the how. We have to think about the what, the why. All of those things are what's important for us.
So I was giggling because so I had a boss who kind of he was into learning and that, but he gets so excited about the stuff he'd learned, he'd come bouncing in and like, right. And you could tell he's just read something. And it's like, oh no, what's he been up to now? So I'm sure you're not like that though. Come bouncing into the business at 9 o'clock. Right, we're gonna oh no, what's she been listening to?
Sometimes I do have that eagerness when I'm like, "Oh my gosh, guys, guess what?"
Yeah.
But because I know how my brain works, like, it goes a million miles a minute, and I've learned that everybody can't keep up with me. So, during my think big time, I have my iPad out and I'm doodling and I'm writing and I'm, like, adding all the bits and pieces so I can pull it out, and then I take that and eventually I'm able to translate it into to the team in the bits that they can actually understand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Could be I am a similar I love learning and I get excited about stuff. Yeah, and I wanna share it and I wanna talk about it. And in fact, I did a podcast with Moeed Amin, and he was talking, and I'm sorry if I get this slightly wrong, Moeed, sorry, that when you learn something, it has a similar effect on the brain as sugar.
Mm.
So, like getting a sugar or eating those chocolate bars when you're learning stuff, and I know for me that does. I get kind of mega excited about it, so yeah, you're nodding.
I am, and it's why, like, I used to be the kind of person who I would be like, "Oh, I have to finish this book completely before I can start on another one," right? Just like my brain being linear. But now that's why I read like 4 or 5 books at a time because I will learn a concept and I'll just sit with it.
Yeah.
And I just leave it be, and then I'll go learn something else or do something else. And, I listen to all kind of stuff. I read all kind of stuff. So some stuff is about growing in business, growing in sales, and some stuff is just like personal development, being a better human being, right? Like, how can I be a better human being? And how can I be a better parent? How can I be a better sister, friend? Like, all of those things are important, again, to develop as a leader.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Love it. And I can just hear that that will come across in the course in a not like I was gonna say toned down way, that's wrong, but in a way which you can take that goodness, extract it, and then put it in a way which other people can benefit from it.
Absolutely.
That is really one of the joys of doing what we do, isn't it?
It is. It's like
I
imparting our knowledge on other people, like helping them get from point A to point B. And when I hear clients and their successes, there's a client that I worked with for about 4 months, and at the end of those 4 months, so we're almost done with the program. And so at the end of the 4 months, they were 21% over their margin, and they were 30% up year over year in terms of their sales. And I was like, and so I want you guys to sit back and I want you to think about something. How often have we talked about KPIs? How often have we talked about the tactical stuff? Right. And what they have done is they're doing the same thing with their team. Instead of beating their team over the head with KPIs and Salesforce and do this and do that, it's like, what are the behaviors I have to drive in order to move things along? And that's really what we focus on. And it just gives me so much joy to know that this different way of training and development and coaching that I've instituted, it works because we can see the results in the numbers. And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, you might think we're doing all this warm, fuzzy stuff, but it all has a meaning. Like your numbers are going to reflect it. Your retention rate is going to go up. All the things that matter to upper management is going to work.
But from the human side, and I mean, this comes across so much in you, people are happier. They're less stressed. They're not getting frustrated with stuff. They're better people in a better place, aren't they? So,
Yes, like when clients say, Wesleyne, I have so much time now, like I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm like, great, because you have relinquished the control. You have let your salespeople sell and sales manager lead. You have done that. And then, like you said, when we get on these sales calls and we're doing team training, everybody's engaged. They're not on their phone. They're not looking around. They want to be there. Right. And so for a lot of leaders that I work with, I make them have a retention goal. Sometimes they don't need to grow their team, but I'm like, I want you to retain the people on your team. And when we look over 12 months, if you're able to retain people, that is a win, right? So really, sometimes they just have to switch the way that they're thinking about things.
oh, I love it. Come on a program.
Ah,
So I just come and sit in, little fly on the wall. So,
and listen, just be a fly on the wall. You're already amazing. You don't need to come to my program.
no, I'd love to. They sound great. No, look, you've been amazing. I was keeping an eye on the clock. I could go on and on and on. I think you probably could as well. But look, no, it's been amazing the stuff you've talked about and shared. How can people get in touch with you? I'm sure some people will hear this and will want to. How can they?
The one of the best ways is to hop on my LinkedIn.
Yep.
These topics that I'm so passionate about, I talk about them often on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
and it's just Wesleyne on LinkedIn. Or you can shoot me an email, Wesleyne@transformsales.com.
brilliant. We'll pop the LinkedIn link in the show notes. But that is so cool to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming along. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing time.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more and leave a review. If you didn't like it, also leave a review. It's all about feedback and learning.